Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about in the Romanesque period is this really unique and particular artwork called the Bayeux Tapestry. First of all, it's not a tapestry. That's what it's called. A tapestry is a specific kind of woven textile, and this is an embroidered textile. So it's misnamed. It's incorrectly named. It's wool sewn into linen. The borders contain real and imaginary animals all the way up and down, so kind of like a bestiary. We talked about that being a popular kind of manuscript at this time, but everything is sewn instead of being painted, so you can imagine how long that would take. There's text written on it in Latin that's also all hand stitched. And it accompanies many of the images, so kind of identifies figures in the images and says what's going on. This entire thing is 20 inches high, so a little under 2 feet high, and it's 230 feet long. So just imagine all of that sewing. Oh my goodness, it would take so long. It's a continuous narrative story, so it's kind of like a frieze on a classical temple, a Greek or Roman temple. And it's about the Norman defeat of the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings in 1066. So a really significant historical event that is captured in this kind of unique way. It's sort of like the column of Trajan, if you think back to when we were talking about the Roman Empire, and that column that had the frieze that wrapped all the way around it in a spiral telling all of Trajan's victories and things like this. So it's kind of like that. In it, there are 8 colors, 2 blues, 3 greens, a yellow and kind of a buff neutral color, and a terracotta red. And all of that would have had to be hand dyed as well. So it's a very painstaking sort of process to create this kind of thing. There's 2 kinds of stitches. One is a stem stitch, which is sort of like a continuous straight line of overlapping strands. And the other is a satin stitch, which is just like a kind of filling in with stitch kind of thing. It's also called laid and couched work. It creates solid blocks of color. After 1066, the Duke of Normandy becomes a king of England. We mentioned him earlier. So England and most of France are then united under one rule. This is sewn either at the Norman court of the Duke or in Kent in England after the battle victory. And it would be sewn by women. So women artisans would have sewn it. It was commissioned, we know, by Bishop Odo. He was the half-brother of William the Conqueror, who is the Norman Duke who becomes the king, right? So he commissions the story of his brother's victory, basically. It's then donated to the Bayeux Cathedral, which is in Bayeux, France. Odo becomes the Earl of Kent, so he gets a royal title in addition to being a bishop. Edward the Confessor, who's the King of England before this, dies. He had verbally indicated that William would succeed him, but Harold, the Earl of Wessex, takes the crown instead. So William, who's from Normandy, and all of his people get in their boats and cross the canal to go and fight for the crown. And so that is the story, and they're successful, and that's the famous Battle of Hastings. So this is the story of that, and I think I have a detail image here. Yeah, so you can see in keeping with other Romanesque works of this time, everything's kind of flat, very elongated, a little bit simplified. There's not too much of a sense of perspective. That you can see the horses do look like they're in perspective. Part of what they use to differentiate between what's in front and what's behind is color blocking. So this is what the whole thing looks like all the way down. It's a pretty fantastic piece of work, and it's really truly a unique thing. We don't see much else like this in Western art history, so I just like to give it its own little speech. So this is the Bayeux Tapestry, even though it's not a tapestry. All right.